Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Hello.
It is Season 4, Episode 52 of the podcast. Happy Wednesday to you, Austin. How you doing today?
Well, and happy Wednesday to you. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Halfway through the week, and now we've had some time to digest the Pittsburgh Steelers' 17-10 loss to the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. The loss dropping the Steelers to 8-6, while the Bills improved to 10 and 4, and the Bills clinch a playoff spot, while the Steelers, still clinging to the 6th seed, are not necessarily on life support, but this was a game you really would have liked to have had, and it was definitely a very winnable game. For despite 5 offensive turnovers, 4 interceptions from Duck Hodges, the Steelers again only lost by 1 score and had the ball in their hands late in the game twice with a chance to tie it. This one does sting.
It doesn't feel good. I mean, it does feel good that the defense was able to keep you in there even after having 4 turnovers from the offense. But it does stink. There was a bunch of things that went wrong, like the punt, the 22-yard punt early on and stuff like that, and the botched Wildcat play with a low snap. There's just a bunch that went wrong. But, I mean, the Steelers were able to keep it within 7 and still hold the Bills to only 17 off of 4 turnovers, so that's not bad at all in that regard anyway.
So a lot to unpack with this game. Where do you want to start? You want to start looking at the offense, the defense, kind of the game plans, the execution? Do you want to go by position group? Where do you want to go first?
We could go by position group.
Okay. And I guess, the first thing to start with is Devlin Hodges. And, Devlin has done a lot of good things this year. I think it would be fair to say that the hype surrounding him was greater than that of his play this season. And he's done a good job this year not hurting the team, but in this game he faced unusual circumstances and facing a really good defense and threw the ball a ton. And, as you might expect, he struggled and he seemed kind of off kilter all game long. At least that's what I thought. Sacked 4 times, and obviously the 4 interceptions, definitely his worst game and the first time we've seen him really struggle for long stretches at any point this season.
Yeah, it was really rough from him. There was just a lot of key mistakes, making bad reads and stuff. Some of it isn't on him. I heard that people were saying a bunch of wide receivers were running wrong routes, like Tevin Jones, who just recently got cut. He apparently had run some bad routes in this game, but Hodges still has the rookie mistakes with him. He's an undrafted free agent quarterback. Like, the mistakes are going to happen, and there's just a bunch of them in this game. The 1 interception, I will say, the first one that he had wasn't the worst one in the world. I thought that was fine. He was giving a 50-50 ball to his guy, and just it was on 3rd down, so it was going to be a punt anyway. Essentially, he just did a punt where he gave his team a chance to get a 50-50 ball. It was thrown at the sideline, so it wasn't dangerous to be returned, and Trey White just made a good play on the ball. So that one I don't blame him for. The other 3, though, those are bad. Those weren't good ones, and I mean, there's really no such thing as a good interception. But like I said, that first one just didn't kill the Steelers, I thought, at least, because they were going to end up punting anyway if they didn't at least try something. So there was that. But overall, I mean, you look at it, and he didn't even get 10 yards for completion. It was just kind of a rough day from him trying to throw. And again, he was just confused. The Bills were throwing stuff at him, and he was just sitting there and confused.
Yeah, and he admitted as much after the game, basically, that they did not expect to get what they got from the Buffalo Bills defense. And, that falls on the coaching staff. And when you look at Randy Fichtner and Mike Tomlin and the game plan they devised for this game, They wanted it to be a run-centric attack, but they were never able to establish much of a ground game. And the numbers are pretty unbalanced, but it is important to remember that the Steelers were throwing the ball a lot late. But at the same time, where do you fall on this? Because I think over as time has gone on, we've kind of thought that you don't necessarily need to run the ball a lot. It's how well you run it. But the Steelers didn't run it well at all. And when you think about the fact that the Bills have the number 2 ranked pass defense in the league, is it wrong to want some more runs at some point during the game? I feel like they started off the first drive or two, I forget which one, they were running the ball. They ran the ball a couple times, and then I felt like they got away from it.
Yeah, I felt like this was like the Todd Haley special, where it's like, oh, so this is what the opposing team is bad at? Let's do the opposite. That was exactly what it felt like, because I felt like they gave up on the run way too early, and it's just really that. They gave up on the run way too early. I felt like they weren't. The Steelers were never down more than 7 in this game. There's no point in. I'm sorry. I am wrong on that. Oh, no, I'm not. No, the Steelers were never down more than 7 in this game. I stand true with that. So there's no really reason to abandon the run and make your undrafted free agent quarterback throw 38 times. Just to go back, in Ben Roethlisberger's rookie season, he never threw more than 30 times in a game. And the game has changed since then. I'll give it that. But, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger didn't do it once, and Devlin Hodges went over that by 8. The closest Ben Roethlisberger got was 28 throws against the Giants in his rookie season. That's it. So this was a mistake in the game plan, and I think that more rushes should have been added, because there were some times where the rushing was a work. I mean, Karras White only got 1 rush, and, I mean, that's a shame. He got 1 for 5 yards, so, I mean, it was a pretty decent run. James Conner had some big ones. I mean, overall, maybe not great, but he finished with a pretty solid average and with a long of 17. So, like, you need to let these guys rush more, and I felt like they gave up after letting Jalen Samuels rush, which is running back. And also, I just have a gripe with the decision to make Isaiah Buggs inactive for 5 running backs and not use them. Like, there's something wrong with that. Like, how can you only rush a total of 14 times in this game? Like, to me, that's a mistake. Like, you benched Buggs for that. You had 4 defensive linemen, which is scary, just for your running backs to not even be used that much. Like, that was just disappointment. And I'm sorry, they only had 13 rushes altogether. I was counting Devlin Hodges' rush as a running back rush. Still, just not good.
And you think about the fact that, I had just mentioned that those last 2 drives, the Steelers were trying to throw the ball a lot. The last drive, it was a 6-play drive. It's acceptable, with a minute and a half left at your own 43, no timeouts, you're going to throw the ball. But that first drive, that drive before that, they started at their own, 19-yard line, and 5:13 to go with all 3 timeouts. You're allowed to run the ball there. They only ran the ball, looks like, 1 time on that drive. You're allowed to run the ball and chew up some more clock there if you want. But clearly that was not the game plan there. And I'm just kind of confused because Benny Snell's been kind of the hot hand lately, and he touched the ball twice. That's not something I'd have expected, which is the same amount of times that Johnny Holton touched the ball, by the way.
And Jalen Samuels, who got 2 carries. Oh, I'm sorry. Jalen Samuels got the same amount of rushes. It's not the same amount of touches. Same amount of rushes for -1 yards.
What do you think of James Conner? I thought in his first game back he looked pretty good, and I wish he would have had a few more chances. But I understand wanting to manage his workload, given how his rushing back from injury got him hurt again the last time he came back.
I thought that was a smart decision. I'll let him rush a lot, and he did look pretty clean out there, especially on the touchdown, which wasn't a rush. But still, I still think that the other running back should have gotten more rushes. Like, the next most was 2. Benny Snell and Jalen Samuels tied for. Like, that was just not enough rushing in the game.
As far as the receivers go, nothing too terribly impressive. James Washington had a few nice plays. Deontay Johnson had a couple, but we'll get into the play later. But Johnson also had a fumble. Not enough big plays from this unit at the end of the day.
No. I mean, it was nice to see Vanette get more than like one catch a game. He ended up with 5, and I know he's not a receiver, but I just wanted to point that out. Also, Zach Gentry got a key third down conversion on his one target, and then Johnny Holt, you said that earlier, is a mistake. He had 2 catches for -1 yard, so that's always fun. And now we're getting the Ryan Switzer special. Instead of Johnny Holton running straight, now he's at the line of scrimmage and just sitting there. So now we have literally Ryan Switzer and Ryan Switzer too. So that's always fun. Sadly, Deion Kane couldn't get it going in this game. Tevin Jones couldn't get it going and ultimately got him fired. But yeah, I mean, there were some explosive plays, just not enough. James Washington got a 34-yard catch. Deontay Johnson, 29. Just not enough.
No, definitely not. And, we focused a lot of blame on Devlin Hodges, but the offensive line, for a unit that's been held up as one of the best in the league for a good amount of years now, I feel like there's been too many times this year where we've talked about them struggling a bit. And maybe at times it has not been fair given the struggling quarterback play and the fact that the offense hasn't done much to help them. But, you think about the Patriots game and the 49ers game, and, it's kind of understandable why they struggled in those games. But elsewhere, they've struggled with just running the football. But this might be completely their worst game of the season. They were out-schemed, and they had no answers. The interior of the line, where 2 Pro Bowlers and former All-Pros are concentrated, they got whipped up there. DeCastro, Pouncey, and Foster all looked terrible to me.
Yeah, they were all super struggling. And, I mean, Pouncey's the reason for one of the turnovers. That low snap to was it James Conner back there on the Wildcat?
Yeah,
I think it was James Conner for that one.
So let's get into that play. So I don't know how you feel. I don't necessarily hate the Wildcat there. What I hate more about that is that, James Conner and first of all, Deontay Johnson is getting the ball on that play, and he's already had kind of a ball security issue, whether it's bobbling punts and kickoff returns or whether it's fumbling itself. And B, I'm confused as to why James Conner was the quarterback on that play and not Jalen Samuels, seeing as how Samuels is typically the Wildcat quarterback. That's something that he did in college. And Conner is a guy that's coming off of injury. This is his first game back in a month. I really have to question the use of the personnel there, and I think it's a classic case of outsmarting yourself by Randy Fichtner.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Wildcat as a whole. I mean, I don't blame that play on the play call there, but it's just been used a little bit too much for my liking. I feel like it's not been successful since the Bengals game, the first Bengals game at that. It's just not been a very good, and like you said, I don't hate it there. It's the whole reason that doesn't work at all is because Marquise Pouncey has a low snap, sets off the timing, and then it forces it gets a fumble on Deontay Johnson. But I mean, I just really want that play to go away. I want all Wildcat plays to go away. It feels like only bad things happen on those plays.
Yeah, and case in point, there was another one where Conner took the snap too early. When Duck Hodges wasn't set, and it resulted in I think an illegal motion or something like that. So again, you have guys practicing in spots or playing in spots where they haven't been at for a lot of reps this year, and the result is sloppy play. And again, part of that's due to Pouncey. And what do you think about Pouncey's snaps? Because I've thought for years it hasn't been that good in terms of, or at least it could be better. And we've seen it. We've seen it the last couple of years. It's cost his team with fumbles. It cost a fumble against the Browns on opening day last year, and here it leads to a key red zone turnover in the Bills game.
Yeah, it's been a low a few times, and Mike Tomlin even came out and said it's like Ben Roethlisberger kind of made up for those low snaps because he'd grab it with one hand and you'd almost not even think about it. After that, it'd be business as usual. But with Devlin Hodges, it's a little bit more seen and more noticeable, so he's just really been struggling. It's not new struggling, it's just with the new quarterback, it's more easy to see.
Also, don't forget Pouncey's snap over Mason Rudolph's head led to the first score of the game against the Rams. So I don't know if that's something he can really improve on, but it's definitely concerning because the center exchange to the quarterback via the snap is probably one of the more underrated important parts of a center's game.
But yeah.
Where else? The offensive line that struggled, we got to them. We talked a little bit about the tight ends. What do you think about the last play where the Hodges got sacked and Tomlin screaming clock it, probably everyone watching it saying clock it, and instead Hodges and the Steelers offense runs a play and it gets picked off and that's the game. I had felt very, very reminiscent of the end of that Patriots game 2 years ago when Roethlisberger was picked off in the end zone running that fake spike. I don't know if you got that kind of vibe, but that's what I was thinking.
I didn't get that vibe. I was wondering what was happening. I mean, you clearly saw Mike Tomlin say clock it, but apparently Hodges didn't hear it at all. So, I mean, I wish he did. I wish he clocked it and they got time to make a play, but I guess they were just hurrying and they had to rush. They felt there was only like 23 seconds left in the game. So, I mean, it was just disappointing. I mean, the Steelers honestly didn't even belong in that situation. Luckily, the Bills got like a holding penalty on their offense drive before, and they won 3 and out, and it stopped the clock when the Steelers only had 2 timeouts in that situation. But I mean, you still like wish that they were able to get it together, and that communication wasn't an issue, and they were able to like get one scheme to play that they all sat down and talked about for about 20 seconds. You know,
that falls on the offensive coordinator because he's the guy who has, he's the guy in the quarterback's ear with the headset on, in the helmet prior to plays. So I don't know what Randy was doing, if he was saying it and Duck just ignored him, or if there was miscommunication or what happened, but that falls on Fichtner at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, it was bad. It shouldn't have happened. I mean, there was also something on that drive where the wide receivers were confused on what was happening, and there was a miscommunication there. So there wasn't good communication on that entire last drive.
So overall, when you look at the Steelers' offense, not the best game plan going into it, and just a lack of execution and lack of preparedness. And the better team won the day on that side of the ball.
Yeah, for sure.
Flipping to the other side, though, the Steelers' defense held up pretty well against not a great but a solid Buffalo Bills offense, only 261 yards of offense, but the Bills were able to stay true to their identity, which is that a team that runs successfully and uses play action off of that and can control the ball. They did turn it over twice, but not nearly as much as the Steelers did. And by the way, what would you say the Bills' offensive identity is?
It just feels like ground and pound, to be honest. And then throw when you need to. The deep shots didn't come until the end of the game, which was weird. I felt like the Bills weren't challenging the Steelers over the top at all in the first half, and then in the second half, Josh Allen tried twice in a row. But yeah, I would say ground and pound personally.
It's ground and pound and ball control. Don't turn the football over. Wouldn't you say that that's kind of what the Steelers are aspiring to be on offense?
Pretty much. That's what they're trying to. Their run game isn't quite as good at the moment, but that's what they're trying for, yeah.
So, we have a clear case in this game of one team staying true to their identity. They only turned it over twice, but they were much more careful about it, and they were able to run far more successfully, while the Steelers ran very poorly, didn't run often, and turned the ball over 5 times. And that makes 20, 21 straight games with the turnover. It's terrible. One team's offense, that's why the Bills are 10-4, the Steelers are 8-6. Both teams have great defenses, and the Bills' offense, while not great, they do what they have to do to win games. And the Steelers' offense just has not been able to hold up their end of the bargain so far this year. And I'm not sure if that's going to change. The one good thing you can say is that now this is an important learning situation for Devlin Hodges. Hopefully he can rebound from this, and hopefully with the re-addition of Juju Smith-Schuster and some more touches for James Conner, perhaps this offense can reestablish that identity, but they're running out of time.
Yeah, I mean, they have to get it together for these last 2 games. You can't just bet on the Titans losing their last 2. I mean, it's possible, but you have to let the Steelers be in control of their own destiny here. You just win out and they make the playoffs. That's it. You look at the Jets game, you got to be there and win that. You can't let the Titans help you like last year. You can't have where you're betting on the Browns to beat the Ravens in the last minute. It sucks that way. It's terrible. Just Steelers got to control their own destiny.
Furthermore, I lost my train of thought. What was I thinking? You want to jump to the injury report real quick while I'm trying to think about what I was talking about?
Yeah, sure. So in game, there was actually no injuries, which is good for the Steelers. And then outside the game, there was only one new addition to the injury report, and that was Artie Burns. He did not participate Wednesday with an illness, but Juju returned to limited on Wednesday, and I still say they're mishandling this injury. I thought last week that if they thought Juju was still ailing at all, they should have made him did not participate Wednesday, did not participate Thursday, and see how we felt Friday. Instead, they did full on Wednesday. He got hurt on Thursday, re-aggravated that knee injury, and was limited, and then he went back to did not participate. And I think that they're making the same mistake again. Juju returned to limited on Wednesday, so it wasn't exactly like last week, but I think that's a mistake. I think that they should have done exactly what I said they should have done last week, which is not have him participate on Wednesday and Thursday, and then see how he feels on Friday. And if he could do full on Friday, that's great, fantastic, and then you have him ready for the game. But I just think that they're mishandling it there. Then Vance McDonald practiced fully on Wednesday. I don't believe he's cleared concussion protocol yet, but he did practice fully. And then James Conner's completely off the injury report for the first time in what feels like forever. So that I just want to mention that as well.
Hopefully he gets some more touches going forward. Burns, no offense to him, but barring injury, he's not going to see the field again this year.
And I don't know if he'll ever see the field again, honestly.
No, he might not. And anyways, I remembered what I was going to ask you. So this game has a very similar vibe to the first Steelers-Browns game, minus the whole helmet swinging incident, doesn't it?
I don't know. I felt like the Browns had more control of that game than the Buffalo Bills did here. I felt like the Steelers actually had a chance to win this game, and the Browns game, it didn't feel like it.
I mean, the Steelers definitely had chances to win that game too, though.
They did, but they also lost by more, and by the end, it was just like, yeah, the Steelers are getting what feels like blown out.
Well, regardless, you look at the quarterbacks from both of those games, you have very similar stat lines. So I think you know where I'm going with this. Devlin Hodges has already been named the starter going into this game against the New York Jets, but Mason Rudolph was also named the starter going into the Bengals game the next week, and after a half and a drive of atrocious football, one turnover matched with one scoring drive, a field goal, and clearly a lack of confidence, the Steelers ended up turning to Devlin Hodges. So my question to you is, could you see something like that happening in this game? Do you see a scenario where Mason Rudolph is inserted into the game instead for hopefully a shot in the arm if the Steelers' offense continues to struggle?
You turn to Mason Rudolph, though? Do you make Paxton Lynch active?
No.
Since he's the only... No, I wouldn't either, but it just feels like starting Rudolph after benching him a few weeks ago just feels counterintuitive. Just feels like it's the same thing.
I didn't say start him. I said if the offense struggles, you pull him in the second half like you did with Rudolph for Hodges a couple weeks ago. Because like you said, these are must-win games now.
But I mostly misspoke. It's also counterintuitive. Like it's just now you're playing musical chairs for seemingly no reason. Both quarterbacks had both been struggling. I guess you're betting on Mason Rudolph getting benched, being humbled a little bit by that, and then performing better from studying tape and stuff. But I don't know. It just feels like it's a lateral move when both quarterbacks are struggling, and now you're just I don't know. I think that. I do think that might be what happens if Devlin Hodges comes out struggling against a very poor Jets pass defense. But I guess we'll see.
I'm not saying you go in there with the mindset of, if the Steelers have 3 points with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter, that you yank him. But what I am saying is the season could be pretty much on the line on Sunday. And through 3 quarters, if you're down 17-3 and the offense has crossed midfield once, I think you have to at least think about it.
Yeah, but is Mason Rudolph going to be better? That's where I'm saying I'd almost rather, if that's going to happen, I'd rather Paxton Lynch go in. At least if we're going to lose, if we're going to try something new, we're going to try something completely new. for that, and it might be terrible. The last time I saw Paxton Lynch play, he was terrible.
The only time Paxton Lynch has played, it's been terrible. Every time he's played, no, I don't want to see Paxton Lynch at all. There hasn't been a good game
for Paxton Lynch in his career, but
I'd rather see the Wildcat every snap than I'd.
Really, damn.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm just not about putting Mason Rudolph back in there. I don't trust in it.
I'm not saying I do either. I'm just trying to throw you a hypothetical, and I know hypotheticals could lead down a long path, but I think you get what I'm trying to say just because of the desperation of the situation, and I get that you might not want to stray from what you normally do, but sometimes desperation will force your hand.
Sure.
Alrighty then. We didn't end up getting into the discussion about the defense, so they got run on a bit. They finished with giving up 130 rushing yards, most of them from Devin Singletary. I thought they did a pretty good job containing Josh Allen in this game. He didn't rip off any crazy long runs, but he did have a touchdown run. And then as far as the pass defense goes, they picked off Josh Allen once, but John Brown was really the key. He's the only guy that caught more than 2 passes in the game and had more than 14 receiving yards. So that's kind of wild how big he was on the day. And then elsewhere, I felt like the Steelers' defense did a good enough job, but you'd have liked to see them get a little more pressure. As far as I know, they only had the 1 sack. It was split between Vince Williams and T.J. Watt, but they only finished with 5 quarterback hits, so it wasn't a terrible pressure day, but they didn't get after Allen like the Bills got after Devlin Hodges, so maybe you'd have liked to see more, but I come away from this feeling like the defense played well enough to win.
I was a bit disappointed with the pass rush in here in the terms of the production, but I mean, like Cameron Hayward could have had his best game all year with how much pressure he was generating in this game and how he was wrecking the game on that side. It's just no one else was really having that game-wrecking game that you want. I mean, the pressure was there again, but I wanted a few more sacks. There's a few times where I thought that Allen could have went down a little bit earlier, but there was just poor tackling or something like that happened, or he just escaped. He was kept in check most of the day, but it's not good. It was kind of funny with the John Brown thing. We both agreed that Cole Beasley was going to be the guy to watch in this game, and he only caught 1 catch or 6 yards on his 6 targets. And then Brown just came in and had a bounce-back game, and Beasley went back to being just
an afterthought.
Just an afterthought, yeah. So that was I found that kind of funny happening in the game, but yeah, honestly, even with Singletary rushing, I thought that the Steelers did a good job against him. Singletary's average on the year was over 5 yards a carry. I think it was at 5.6 on the year, and he was kept to 21 for 87, which is just under 4.5 yards a carry. So he was not kept in check, but the Steelers probably did the best against him than any other team for the most part. So I guess that was something to hang your hat on, and I guess that's really all I have to say. I don't really have much else to say.
Yeah, and what else is interesting about Beasley is that I can't remember if he was targeted after that Steven Nelson interception, which it was more on Josh Allen, but I think Beasley had it in his hands, so you probably still would like to see him come down with it if you're a Bills fan or player or coach. But the defense still came away with two turnovers, just 1 sack. I felt like they did an okay job against the run. They could have been better. One thing to note when it comes to sacks against mobile quarterbacks is that interior rushers are less intent on getting the quarterback because if they vacate their spot, the quarterback will take off and run. So they're less about trying to bring down the quarterback and more about containing, if that makes sense. Now, they still sacked Kyler Murray, 4 times or 5 times last week, and they only sacked Allen once. But that's just one thing to think about, is that sometimes they're more intent on keeping that pocket stable because they don't want the quarterback breaking free and running.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I thought Cameron Hayward had one of his best games of the season in this game, and he didn't finish with a sack. I just thought he did well containing, and
he knocked down 3 passes. He was all over the place.
Yeah, man, he was doing good.
Too many spot drops from the Steelers' defense and zone. Not enough man-to-man coverage, and I get you don't want to run too much of man with a guy like Josh Allen at quarterback, but it seemed like Allen was able to diagnose what was going on, and there were several plays where there were corner routes and out routes against cover 2 that the Steelers were unable to defend.
And it's just a shame, really.
So, one other thing, I guess moving into special teams now. Worst game of the season from Jordan Berry, by far. He had 2 bad punts, and I don't really know what it was. I don't know if something got in his head because he got whooped last week against the Cardinals, or if he was just in line for a couple bad punts. But this was a bad time for Berry to have his worst game of the season.
And that was pretty rough, gifting the Bills such good field position. Like that, it really sucked, that 22-yard punt. I wasn't even expecting it. I was like, okay, we're going to come out and punt. That's fine. And then I'm like, what happened? Like, I thought it got blocked or something, but it just, like, went straight up in the air. Like, I was just like, oh, okay, I guess this is happening. So it's been a rough 2 weeks for Jordan Berry, to say the least.
Yes, indeed. And I keep losing my train of thought. What was I going to say? It'll come back to me, but not a banner day from the Steelers in general. So they fall to 8-6. Any closing thoughts on the game at this point?
No, not really.
Alrighty then. You want to move on to some Steelers news then?
Sure, we could go to that.
Alrighty then. So the Pro Bowl rosters were announced, and 5 Pittsburgh Steelers made the team in order of starters, at least, to non-starters. There's Marquise Pouncey, the center, defensive tackle Cameron Hayward, outside linebacker T.J. Watt, and safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. They are all starters, and David DeCastro is a reserve guard. So what do you think about those 5? Any thoughts on snubs or people who made it that maybe you were kind of surprised that made it?
So one of the biggest snubs, I think, is Tyler Matakevich for special teams. He leads the NFL, not just the AFC, the NFL in special teams tackles. So not having him there was a shame to me. Matthew Slater made it instead, and I just think that it was because I think he has a blocked punt. I think that's what must have sent him over, but I didn't agree with that. I thought Tyler M should have made it for special teams. And then the second biggest one, if not the biggest one, at first, I didn't realize the stats. I thought people on Twitter were just being just yinzers. But Bud Dupree got snubbed. I didn't realize who made it over him. Matt Judon made it over him. And so before the podcast, I just was curious. I wanted to filter by the linebackers and see their stats in the AFC. And Bud Dupree, I couldn't find pressure rate. That's what I really wanted to see, is if Judon was just better in that sense. But all the stats point to Dupree being better. You see that Dupree has 58 tackles to Judon's 47. You see Dupree has 9.5 sacks to Judon's 8.5. Dupree has 4 forced fumbles to Judon's 3. He also has 2 recoveries while Judon has 0. So I don't know how Judon made it over Dupree when, in terms of sacks, TJ Watt and Bud Dupree are number 1 and 2 in sacks in the AFC among all linebackers. So I don't really get it. And again, stats aren't everything, because Von Miller was named the number 1 outside linebacker put in, and he has worse stats than all 3 of T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree, Matt Judon. He's only has 40 tackles, only 7 sacks, and that's worse than the other 3. And he also has no forced fumbles and no recoveries. So, granted, stats don't mean everything. But I was surprised. I didn't think that Judon was that much. I thought a lot of Ravens made it. A little bit too many Ravens. There's 12 altogether, and I don't know if every single one was really deserving. And this is one of them where it's he could have been an alternate for Bud Dupree, and Bud Dupree should be the number 1 alternate. There's no one else in the AFC that is really deserving of it, unless Harold Landry is considered an outside linebacker. I don't know. He's listed as just a linebacker, while other linebackers are because you can't just filter by outside and inside on NFL.com. It's just there is middle linebackers that are like Kyle Vanoy is listed as a middle linebacker. So I don't know what Landry plays over in Tennessee. If I'm being honest, he might be moved all around.
Fun fact, did you know that Robert Spillane is tied for 7th in the NFL in special teams tackles? Do you know how many games he's played?
I think only 4 or 5, right? Like, that's incredible.
He just played in his 6th game, and he has 9 special teams tackles, while Medikevich has 15. Also up there, tied for 7th, are L.J. Fort with the Ravens, Johnny Holton, and in 6th place all alone is Jordan Dangerfield with 11. But, yeah, isn't that interesting about Spillane?
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. He's playing really good on special teams.
And that after he had the 2 penalties on the opening on his first game, so he's come a good ways. So always nice to see a nice special teams contributor, so he can take up a roster spot from Tuzar Skipper.
Yeah,
That's what.
I don't know. I lost my train of thought. We're both doing it today. I'm just gonna give up on that sentence.
The Steelers promoted, how do you say his name? He's a receiver from Syracuse.
Who? The Amar Darbo?
He's
not from Syracuse. I didn't think so. Is he?
Oh, sorry, I was confusing him with the other receiver, right?
Oh, yeah, he's from Michigan. The one that got signed to the practice squad, Jamal Custis, he's from Syracuse.
My bad. I was confusing them. I'm not on the ball today. It's been a long day. It really has.
It's all good. We both get passes today.
So, you want to talk about those 2 transactions?
Yeah, so the Steelers promoted wide receiver Amar Darbo from the practice squad. He was a former Seattle Seahawks 3rd-round pick, I believe back in 2017. Yes, he was drafted back in 2017. He was promoted to the active roster from the practice squad. In turn, they released Tevin Jones to make room. And to fill the practice squad spot, as I said, they signed wide receiver Jamal Custis to the practice squad. He was undrafted free agent out of Syracuse. He was given the most guaranteed money by an undrafted free agent wide receiver in the past 2 years by the Chiefs. He wasn't able to crack the roster or even the practice squad, but the Chiefs saw something in him, and Steelers did the same with Locke, the safety. They gave him a big signing bonus, not exactly like the biggest, but he didn't even make the practice squad after cuts, so that happens sometimes. And then also, since Tevin Jones has been cut, he's been signed to the Cowboys practice squad, so he found a home rather quickly.
What did you think about Tevin Jones? I didn't expect him to be leaving so quickly and not come back to the practice squad. I guess the Steelers had seen enough.
I'm surprised. I guess the Cowboys sent him an offer, and I don't know where Tevin Jones is from. It might have been just more, he might have actually had options for once.
Well, let's see. Tevin Jones is from Clear Creek, Texas. Yep.
Well, I always look at that, and when these undrafted free agent guys get the choice to get home, it feels like they always go there.
He signed originally as a UDFA with the Houston Texans, so yeah, he's staying close to home.
Thanks.
Alrighty, and then, man, the Browns have been a circus all year, and it feels like things with Odell Beckham Jr. get crazier every week, doesn't it?
Really does. Everything just keeps getting worse and worse.
So it was revealed over the past week that Odell Beckham Jr. was telling other teams to, quote, come and get me to opposing players and coaches, and he didn't exactly deny it either from what I understand. But when talking about going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, because that was apparently one of the teams that Beckham was talking to, he said it would never happen, and quite frankly, that's true, given the Steelers' cap situation and probably not wanting that kind of a mess. But what do you make of it?
Yeah, that's not denying it. He said it would never happen because Pittsburgh wouldn't do it, not because he doesn't want to go there. It was smart wording from him to put it that way, but he didn't exactly deny it, and I am a complete no. I don't care if the Browns say we just want a 7th-round pick for him just to dump him off because he's just running his mouth. I don't want him. We don't need more drama in the locker room, and he hasn't even been good this year. So I'm good on a $20 million cap charge that the Steelers don't even have room basically to pay Javon Hargrave and Bud Dupree. I'm good.
Not to mention he's had injury history the last few years.
That too.
So all around just not something I'd want to deal with. But do you think he's going to play he's going to be in Cleveland at the start of next season?
The start Yeah, the trade deadline, I'm not so sure.
So you think he'll make it? Because I feel like if he's going to get traded, it's going to happen around the draft.
Possible. I think that he's going to go more towards the trade deadline.
Indeed. All right. Let's get into our recap of Week 15 around the NFL. We already talked about Thursday night between the Ravens and the Jets. The Ravens put a whooping on the Jets and are one away from securing home field advantage in the AFC. The Jets, the Steelers, we'll see next week. And moving into the 1 o'clock games, a rematch in the NFC North between the opening game of the season of the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. And the Packers complete the sweep of the Bears by another low-scoring 21-13 affair. The Bears had an opportunity to tie it with a fantastic lateral play, but I think that was the fullback or tight end. Waited a split second too long to lateral, and ultimately the Bears came up just 10 yards short. But man, that was a really exciting play. But the Packers come away with their 11th win of the season and are currently the number 2 seed in the NFC, despite no one really talking about them as one of the NFC's elite.
Yeah, man, and it's just really sad on that one play that you see Allen Robinson at the bottom of the screen just calling for it. If you throw it to Allen Robinson, that's a touchdown. Just missed that one last guy, and it just was enough. It's just like similar to when Antonio Brown just stepped out against the Dolphins. It was like that close. Like if you made one more thing happen there, it would have been a touchdown. But it happens. But it was a pretty good game, surprisingly. Mitchell Trubisky's been playing pretty decently the past few weeks.
Might be too little, too late though. Now with the Bears at 7-7, were they completely eliminated? I think they were.
I'm not certain.
I'll have to double check that out. Either way, they're on life support right now. The Bengals and Patriots squared off, and it looked like it was going to be a close game for a while. The Bengals actually led 10-7 at one point, but then the Patriots became the Patriots again. The defense kicked things into high gear. Andy Dalton had 151 passing yards, and the Patriots cruised to a 34-13 victory, but no one's really sold on them right now.
Yeah, it still wasn't convincing victory in the beginning. They just really struggled. And Andy Dalton somehow made Duck Hodges look really good comparatively. I mean, played against a much harder defense, but I mean, he finished with 151 yards, like you said, 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions. So, I guess at least he made Duck Hodges look good, and he finished with a lower QBR. But the Patriots just don't feel good. This team just doesn't. The offense isn't good enough, it feels like. I mean, the defense is crazy good, but I don't know if it's going to be enough this year. Last year, the offense came alive at right into the playoffs. It doesn't look like that's happening right now. So, I mean, until it happens, until the Patriots get eliminated, I can't really say anything, but they don't really feel that good. It really does feel like the Patriots are finally not going to make it to the Super Bowl. You
know what's interesting is you look at the 7 teams in the AFC playoff picture right now. Wouldn't you say that 5 of them have similar issues, or at least 3 of them? You look at the Bills, Patriots, and Steelers, and they all have almost identical problems where their offense is struggling, average to terrible, and they're they're surviving on the strength of their very good defenses. The Chiefs are the other way. They have that really good offense and a defense that has struggled most of the year. They're getting better though. And the Ravens are the most complete team, and the Titans are a team that I think are more complete, although they have been more of an offensive team lately. And the Texans are definitely an offensive team. They're just uber inconsistent everywhere.
It's kind of funny that it's just the offensive woes, but I mean, I guess they say defense wins championships anyway, so that's why so many defensive teams are in this talk, while the offenses are so bad for all of them.
And speaking of the Chiefs, who had for the most part, a lackluster defense this season, have come out with 2 impressive games on defense, including a 3-point outing against the Denver Broncos. In the snow in Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes looked pretty good. The Chiefs cruised to a 20-point victory against the Broncos and improved to 10-4 and lock up. Oh, no, they already locked up the division. Never mind. But they keep cruising, trying to make sure that they can get a shot at a first-round bye, and they're still playing well. So it's good to see from that perspective.
Yeah, man. I don't really have much to say about this game because I didn't see it. I just thought that Drew Lock would play better.
As did I, but the Chiefs' defense might be rounding into form. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions defense continues to suffer, and this time at the hands of Jameis Winston, and the Buccaneers offense puts up 38. The Lions made this close for a minute, but the Buccaneers ended up beating them pretty badly, and things are not looking good in Detroit right now.
Not at all. I mean, they don't really have anything going for them at the moment. It's time to get ready for next season, really.
They just placed Matthew Stafford on injured reserve, and remember, at one point they were 2-0-1 and almost won that opening game, so they could have been 3-0.
That's kind of crazy, and then would have came crashing straight down.
They are 1-9 since that 2-0-1 start. That's just wild. In a huge matchup in the AFC South, the Houston Texans come away with an impressive 24-21 victory over the Titans on the road. The Texans felt like they were in control for a good portion of this game, but the Titans actually were moving the ball more early. But that huge interception, I think it was Whitney Merciless, if I'm not mistaken, that was a key turning point in that game, and the Texans were able to jump out to a lead that the Titans were unable to overcome. This is what you wanted to see if you were a Steelers fan.
Oh, yeah. It looked good at first. The Texans were up 14-0 going into the half, and then it was like tied 14-14 early on in the fourth. But Texans were able to pull away and just play better. Luckily, I think really the difference maker was Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had left the game with his injury. He had to stop rushing after his 21 carries, and that was just enough to make it past.
On to the next game, the Miami Dolphins at the New York Giants. The Giants come away with their first victory in, 9 weeks, something like that. A nice farewell tour for Eli Manning, who gets pulled at the end of the game to a nice cheering standing ovation for what is most likely his last game with the New York Giants as a starter, and to do it at MetLife Stadium was pretty special. I didn't think they'd be putting up that many points, but the Dolphins got back on that tank, and it was an important move for draft position, but a nice farewell for Eli Manning.
I mean, it was good for him. I mean, he didn't even play that great, but it was enough to win, and people were happy, so good for him.
That Darius Slayton's a man.
Darius Slayton is the man.
Yo, how about the Eagles and Redskins? The Eagles get that backdoor cover on the last play of the game because of that stupid Dwayne Haskins lateral.
That was really annoying. That was really, really annoying. Like, I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to get this game right. And then it was just like, I turn it down, and then, the game's, 2 hours over, and I'm looking back, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Because I was at work, so I was just like, well, what happened here? And I was just so mad about it.
The Seattle Seahawks are incapable of blowing teams out for some reason. They were up, I think, 30-10 on the Panthers at one point, but the Panthers scored a couple of touchdowns and made it a 6-point game, but the Seahawks were able to hold on for their 11th win of the season while the Panthers continued to fall.
They just want to make it look close. They want to make it exciting for everyone because they don't want it to be boring. You know.
What would that team be without Christian McCaffrey this season?
Oh my God, they might not have a win. Honestly, you look at how Christian McCaffrey is done. Christian McCaffrey accounts for almost all their yardage. It's ridiculous. He has 13,000 yards on not 13,000, 1,300 yards on the year. I mean, he's really just been carrying them.
Moving on to the next game, Cleveland Browns at the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals putting the Browns' already slim playoff hopes on even worse life support with a 38-24 beatdown. I had a feeling this one was coming. That's just the way the Browns season has been.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. I thought that the Browns would play a little bit better, but I mean, I guess I could see it coming with how well Arizona played Pittsburgh. I don't know.
And one result that I was surprised about was the Raiders falling to the Jaguars in the last game in Oakland, at least in probably the foreseeable future in the NFL. Who knows exactly what'll happen. But it looked good for the Raiders. They were up 16-3, and at the end of the game, they lose in heartbreaking fashion, and Derek Carr gets booed off the field. What a way to go out.
Yeah. Welcome to Las Vegas. It's just, ugh, this team isn't good.
Is Derek Carr going to be the quarterback next year? I have a feeling that John Gruden might be pulling some strings.
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like this could be like Phillip Rivers' new team or something.
That would be really interesting. That seems like a John Gruden kind of guy.
Yeah.
Speaking of Rivers, his Chargers got belted by the Vikings at home, or I should say at Minnesota West this week, as the Chargers Stadium will become for opposing teams. The Chargers are just biding their time till the regular season ends. This was a team that won 12 games last year and is now going to have a losing season.
Yeah, I said it. I was just, you shouldn't trust the Chargers because they blew out the Jaguars. And then they turn around and get blown out this week, and I can't say I didn't see it coming.
A game no one saw coming was the Atlanta Falcons upending the San Francisco 49ers 29-22 in a game that still meant a lot to the 49ers, who have now lost out on that first round bye due to the fact that the Seahawks ended up winning this week. This was certainly shocking. I thought Atlanta might play them close, but I didn't see them winning the game. I guess it just kind of goes to show you how close the talent is in the NFL, that it is any given Sunday.
Oh, I forgot to say it, but screw this game and screw the Cardinals game. I was up so good in fantasy before these two late games, and I went up against Kenyon Drake and Julio Jones, and Julio Jones balled out against San Francisco because Richard Sherman got hurt, and Kenyon Drake put up 4 touchdowns. What? Why? Why did Kenyon Drake get 4 touchdowns? It ruined my day. It really straight up ruined my day between these two games. Like, I was just like, everything went right for the person I was versing. That pissed me off, but we're out here, I guess. And, I mean, the Falcons, I don't even know with them, man. They're just so weird. They're such a weird team. They really are playing to save Dan Quinn's life.
And so far, I think they've done a pretty good job of it. The Niners have had some problems as of late. They had the toughest 3-game stretch in NFL history there, and they might still be feeling the residual effects of that. And you look at the fact that they gave up, 46 points last week, something like that. So maybe their defense has definitely struggled lately. And then as far as the Browns go, it's the Browns. That's just what happens.
Man, I just get so mad. I was still so salty. Next week's game against the Rams for the 49ers is big. Like, if the 49ers just happen to blow that game, then Seattle, they're going to be playing on Wild Card Weekend, which would be such a shame. I mean, assuming Seattle could beat Arizona as well.
Yeah, quite a storybook season that they had. The last unbeaten team could still end up finding itself going to what would most likely be Dallas or Philadelphia. I mean, could you imagine that?
Oh, what? One of the NFC East teams getting blown out? I guess it's not that terrible now that you put it that way. I forgot that they see the NFC East, probably.
Well, what if they lose that game, though?
Oh, my God. That'd be traumatic. If I was a 49ers fan, I would, basically go hide for a week. I don't know what I would do.
I mean, that's what happened to the Saints in 2010 when they went to the 7-9 Seahawks, and then Beastquake happened.
Make a good point. You do make a good point.
So the last later game was the Cowboys and the Rams. One team hot as a firecracker, the other team ice cold. And if I told you the score was 44-21, you'd have probably told me that the Rams won the game. Well, believe it or not, it was the Cowboys who won the game. And despite the bad omen of the opening coin toss, where it looked like the Cowboys and Dak Prescott had elected to kick in both the opening and start of the second half, that was later corrected. It looked like the Cowboys, it was not going to be their day, but they just came out firing on all cylinders, and they showed that they are a talented team. For whatever reason, they just could never get it together, except for in this game, where they finally did put it together, while the Rams looked like the team that we saw at midseason, especially when they were in Pittsburgh, where they just could not do anything.
Yeah, this was Dallas's first quality win against quality is questionable, but I mean, it was a good win for them against a winning team, so that's good for them.
We already talked about Sunday night's game, and then in the Monday night game, Drew Brees became the NFL's all-time passing touchdown leader as he threw 4 and completed, 29 of 30 passes, which is an NFL record, as the Saints had an absolute romp over the Indianapolis Colts. A historic night in the Superdome, and the Saints rolled to their 11th win while the Colts fall out of the playoff picture. A team that started, 4-2, something like that, they're in a free fall now, and it's been a long season for the Colts, but they should still be proud of the way they've played this season.
Yeah, man, it's just really rough. I can't say I saw this happening. I didn't see it happening this bad. I thought that the Colts would be able to do better against a Saints defensive line that was really decimated, but I mean, their running backs weren't able to get anything going. I mean, they went down so quick. It was just terrible. And if Drew Brees completes his first 4 passes in a row against the Titans, he sets a record for the most completions in a row in the NFL after just breaking the touchdown record.
Who holds that record right now, do you know?
I think Phillip Rivers is tied for it, because I remember Phillip Rivers being there like last season as well, like almost having it. I don't remember.
All right. Anyways, that was Week 15 around the NFL. Let's get into some news. So as we talked about on the last podcast, Terrell Suggs, the edge rusher, linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals, was waived, and he had said prior to the waiver process that he was not planning to report, or would consider not reporting, to any team that claimed him if it wasn't the Baltimore Ravens. He wanted to get on that reunion tour like Austin had pointed out, but he was claimed by the Chiefs. There were 3 other teams in front of the Ravens that put in claims for him besides the Chiefs, including the Saints, 49ers, and Seahawks, that were all interested in him. And Suggs has reported, so I guess it was just a little gamesmanship on his part, and he seems to be excited to join the team. So I guess he just wanted to end up in Baltimore more, but he's just happy he ends up with a competitive team.
Yeah, the Ravens didn't even put in a claim, but it was likely because they were last in the draft order and they would have just signed him to probably a better deal so they could save money if he got to them. I guess they just weren't. They knew that if he fell, he was coming to them. So I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, there's no point in claiming someone if you're the last team in the waiver order, because you can just then sign them for a custom deal, like you said.
Yeah.
So Janoris Jenkins was actually claimed by the Saints. I'm surprised by that.
I have no idea. I don't know what the Saints are thinking. Like, that's such an expensive price tag, even just for a few games. It's just like doesn't seem worth it at all. And I know the Saints have kind of struggled in the air this year after being pretty good last year. Just I don't know, man. I don't know what they like about old Giants cornerbacks.
You know what they could do instead? Play Chauncey Gardner-Johnson more, because he's awesome.
That'd be way better.
So I already mentioned that Drew Brees broke Peyton Manning's career touchdown mark. He sits at 540. Meanwhile, Tom Brady sits at just 538 for his career, so that's just 1 shy of Manning for second all-time and 2 shy of Brees for the all-time record. So, that being said, it looks like for these 2 guys, it could just be who ends up playing the longest.
It's going to be close. I mean, Brady started first, but, I mean, just it's going to be interesting. I hope it's Drew Brees, though. I'd much rather it be Drew Brees.
So both quarterbacks' contracts are up at the end of the season. Do you think both of them could retire at the end of the year?
I don't think Tom Brady is going to retire, but Drew Brees, it's possible. I mean, I think that the Saints might sadly move on and just say, you know what, we're going to go with Teddy Bridgewater from here on out, but it's going to be tough. I think Brees might step away, and I think Brady's not done.
I'm not convinced either of them are going to come back. I think Brady's ability has eroded significantly, and I think there's a chance that the Patriots might move on from him. As crazy as that sounds.
I don't think he's going to be a Patriot next year, but I just think he's going to continue playing.
I see what you mean. I gotcha. I see what you're saying. I'm not sure what the Saints are going to do. That's an interesting problem because both him and Bridgewater, their contracts are up.
Bridgewater went 6-0 in his time while Drew Brees was hurt. So I mean,
do you think?
Tough.
Because Teddy Bridgewater's contract was up at the end of the last year too, and he decided to come back for one more year. Do you think he was? I have to think he was kind of thinking like, I'll give this one more year, see what Drew is thinking, and then if at this point it's probably like I've waited long enough, it's time for me to do my own thing.
Yeah, I think he wanted to be part of the Saints because the Dolphins made him an offer, and he would have been a starter with the Dolphins, like no doubt. By now, Teddy Bridgewater would have been starting. So he chose this because it seemed like a better place that he had a better chance to take over as a starter afterward in a much better situation. And so I think that he's proven himself. When he hits, the Saints don't lock him up and make him their starting quarterback, another team will. I don't know which team exactly. There's a bunch of teams that are in it. It's just, but he's going to get a massive contract as a starting quarterback, I think. So I think it's going to be the Saints. I think that he chose the Saints for a reason. I think that the Saints are going to move on from Drew Brees and start looking for their future in Teddy Bridgewater. But,
There's been some moving around in the front office of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that is in the firing of Executive Vice President Tom Coughlin, amidst several players standing up and stating that they had been fined for various things. For example, Leonard Fournette was fined $99,000 for sitting on the bench while inactive in the 2018 season finale. He won his grievance against the Jaguars, and with Coughlin out the door after 3 seasons, remember, they went to the AFC Championship game 2 years ago. Since then, I think they're like 9-20 or something like that. So they've been really bad the last 2 years. And of course, there were guys like Jalen Ramsey, who apparently had a rift with Coughlin. So what do you make of this? And furthermore, what do you think is going to happen to head coach Doug Marrone this season?
Some of those fines were ridiculous. Like, they were fining people massive amounts of money. And several former Jaguars were saying, like, they really didn't want us to be there. They, like, hated us. And I think Dante Fowler said that because Dante Fowler also had some ridiculous fines. I forget for what. Jalen Ramsey tweeted about it as well. Like you said, they had a rift between them. Just, it seems like something that happened. The culture with the Jaguars was falling apart, and people didn't want to be there. And you have to think that maybe even this affected Telvin Smith. Maybe that's why Telvin Smith didn't come back and play. So I think it was good to move on, and I have no idea what's going to happen with Marrone. It might happen after the season that he might get fired. I might let him finish out and see how it goes. I think Shad Khan said that they're like on thin ice, Marrone. Like, you're going to see how they finish out the season, and then he's going to make decisions.
I just don't see how you bring Marrone back if you don't bring Coughlin back. You know what I mean? I feel like they're just going to cut him loose at the end of the year.
I think it makes sense.
We have 2 new suspensions in the league. First is Broncos cornerback Kareem Jackson. He was suspended for the rest of the season due to a violation of the policy and program of substance abuse. Any thoughts on that?
No. The Broncos have not had... yes. The Broncos have not had luck with cornerback this year. Bradley Roby walked. They signed Bryce Callahan as a big free agent, and he never stepped foot on the field. And now you're having this to end the year. I mean, not that it matters much, but still.
Seattle Seahawks wide receiver Josh Gordon has been suspended yet again. This time, though, it's for violating the league's PED policy. It's not known at this time how long he'll be suspended for, but that's obviously another disappointing blow for a guy that has been unable to stay off the suspended list for long.
Dude is probably not playing another down in the NFL. It's just going to be tough. Like, no one's going to want him. He's not doing good enough. And before this happened, he threw an interception in the Seahawks game against the Panthers. Like, he's just not doing much. He had only had 6 catches before that Panthers game, too, as the Seahawks. So, it's just been rough.
Never forget that in 2013, he led the league in receiving yards and had more yards that year than Randy Moss or Terrell Owens ever had in a single season. And he only played in 14 games.
That's incredible. Such a shame. So much talent wasted.
Remember, his quarterback that season was, for the most part, Brandon Weeden, too.
Oh, fucking stuff.
The Detroit Lions ownership has made it clear to general manager Bob Quinn and head coach Matt Patricia that they firmly expect the Lions to be playoff contenders next season. Falling short of this will mean another regime change in the Motor City. No surprise there. The Lions fired Jim Caldwell when they were 9-7 a handful of years ago, And they are going for a culture change, but at the same time, you're hoping for better than 3-9-1.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough ask to improve that much from 3-9-1 to a playoff team next season, but I mean, I'm sure they'll get on it. I mean, I think the Lions have a pretty decent amount of cap space, and I think that they're going to be. Matt Stafford's on a contract year too, if I'm correct, right?
I'm not certain.
So I think Stafford can be is going to be gone after this year, possibly if he is on that contract year. So they got a lot of work ahead of them. It's going to be interesting.
That defense is terrible, by the way. That, for Matt Patricia being a defensive guy, it's one of the worst in football, and that's where they're going to have to start. So Stafford actually has 3 seasons left after this year.
Really? For some reason, I'm under the impression that this is a contract year for him. I don't know why.
He does have a potential out in 2021.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So, okay. Also, last note on this side of things, the Panthers are going to be starting quarterback Will Grier, benching Kyle Allen against the Colts, and he was one of the guys I looked at pre-draft. He reminds me a lot of Jay Cutler with his gunslinger attitude, kind of like a Brett Favre. He'll wing things in there. At least that's what he did in college. But he doesn't have the most talented arm. In fact, I'd say his arm is closer to Devlin Hodges' arm than it is Jay Cutler's arm. And Jay Cutler had a good arm, but not a great arm. But Grier is just, in my opinion, he's just a backup. But he's on my fantasy team in my Dynasty League, and I'm in the championship game. So I'm going to respond to that by still not starting him this week.
Oh, man, I feel like you should do it anyway, just for the memes.
Just for the memes. I can't. Got the championship on the line. But it's interesting. I'll be interested to see what he does, because I'll be able to keep him for free next year.
Yes.
All right, so we have a host of injuries to get to. You want to get to those?
Sure. So Raiders offensive tackle Trent Brown is headed to IR. John Gruden announced Matt Stafford's season has officially ended, which we already talked about. Evan Ingram has been placed on IR, and Chiefs defensive Alex Okorafor has been placed on IR with a torn pec, which is why we're one of the teams that put in for Suggs. They need another pass rusher. I feel like there's been a lot of torn pecs in the league this year, but yeah, those are all the major injuries anyway.
One thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I had heard about this and I meant to mention it to you before, but how would you feel about this scenario? So you're trying to save some money to re-sign Bud Dupree. You let B.J. Finney walk. You cut Ramon Foster. And instead of drafting a guy, you kick Matt Filer to left guard, and you start either Zach Banner or Chukwuma Okorafor at right tackle, and then have the other be the swing, and then you draft an interior guy to be the backup sometime in the middle of the draft.
That would be interesting. I might try and see if Chukwuma Okorafor could play inside, though, and keep Matt Filer at his... I don't know, but that's tough.
Filer's much more of a natural guard than Okorafor. Okorafor is definitely not a guard.
You're right. I don't know. That sounds interesting. I don't really know what I would do. I feel like it is an option.
Something to think about.
Oh, for sure.
So, I just wanted to kick that to you, let that fester a little bit. But in any case, as we wrap up this podcast, any closing thoughts, Austin?
Oh, go Steelers.
The Steelers are going to be on the road this week. That was their last home game this season, and they're going to be on the road if they make the playoffs, so no more games at Heinz Field this year. They're going to be taking on the Jets this week, and with the Titans still breathing down their neck, this is a very important game. You might remember the last time the Steelers were at MetLife Stadium against the Jets. It did not go well. I believe that was a game you were at.
What year was that? What was the last time they were there?
2014. That was when they lost after...
Yes, I was there.
Yep. That was... That was one of the worst games in the...
Tavis Bryant got a garbage time touchdown. I remember that. It was a long one.
I remember seeing the tweet that said Ben Roethlisberger went from having 12 touchdowns in 2 games to 13 in 3.
It was rough.
it was. Well, hopefully the Steelers are going to be more prepared for this one because they cannot afford to put up a dismal performance like they did on that day 5 years ago. But anyways, in the meantime, thank you for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have any questions about the show, please feel free to email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com and check out our website, strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. You can find our podcasts posted on SoundCloud and YouTube, and you can find them wherever you can find podcasts, like on the iOS app. So feel free to check that out. Thank you again for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Austin, thank you for joining me, and have a terrific day, everybody.
Well, good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.